Welcome back. And now for the news in detail. Pakistan has reaffirmed its commitment to peace in Afghanistan. During a meeting in Islamabad, the Foreign Secretary Suhail Mahmood informed US diplomat Alice Wells about Pakistan's role for peace in the region. The two sides also agreed to bolster bilateral relations. Wells arrived in Islamabad on Sunday for a 4-day visit to Pakistan. Her visit comes after Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi's trip to Washington. Pakistan's Foreign Office spokesperson Aisha Farooqi says Indian occupation forces have imprisoned Kashmiris for the last 172 days. Speaking in Islamabad, she said the Indian government's extremist ideology has created a mess in Kashmir. She said Pakistan is raising voice for Kashmiris all over the world. Farooqi said members of the UN Security Council are concerned about the situation in the valley. Meanwhile, Indian forces have martyred 2 more Kashmiris in the Pulwama district. The civilians were targeted during a cordon and search operation of the Indian paramilitary forces in the district's Avantipura area. The occupation forces have martyred 12 civilians in January so far, while 5 have been targeted over the past 24 hours. Enraged by accusations of being paid, actors of women protesters in India's capital New Delhi have sent a defamation notice to the ruling party. The Bharatiya Janata Party's IT cell earlier claimed anti-citizenship law demonstrators are taking 500 rupees per day to attend the Shaheen Bagh sit-in. In the notice, protesters said the head of the BJP's IT cell, Amit Malviya, has a vested interest in defaming the demonstrators. They said through his allegations, Malviya has not only misled the public, but also brought disrepute to the protesters. Meanwhile, Indian police have arrested 16 women for protesting against the controversial Citizenship Act. The Indian government has been facing countrywide protests against the new law for over a month, with 27 people dying in the unrest. US President Donald Trump says trade agreements with the different countries represent a new model for the 21st century. Speaking at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Trump said the US has reached a trade deal with Japan and is looking for a new one with the UK.
Thousands of miles from his impeachment trial in the United States, President Donald Trump took center stage at Davos to tout the success of the country's economy. He said the time for skepticism in the US economy is over.
Today, I'm proud to declare that the United States is in the midst of an economic boom, the likes of which the world has never seen before. We've regained our stride, rediscovered our spirit, and reawakened the powerful machinery of American enterprise.
Trump said he has a good relations with Chinese President Xi Jinping. He added negotiations over the second phase of the trade deal with China will start soon.
Our relationship with China right now has probably never been better. We went through a very rough patch, but it's never, ever been better. My relationship with President Xi is an extraordinary one. He's for China, I'm for the U.S., but other than that, we love each other.
The 4-day annual gathering is being held at the shadow of the 4th Industrial Revolution and its massive transformation of the global economy. The summit will host 150 sessions that will be open to public attendance.
The US says Iran's threat to quit the non-proliferation treaty would send a very negative message. On Monday, Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif said Tehran would abandon the global treaty if the European powers refer its nuclear program to the UN Security Council. Speaking to journalists in Geneva, US Disarmament Ambassador Robert Wood said Iran is threatening to walk away from the key treaty. He added that Iran must negotiate an agreement with the US that not only deals with the nuclear issue, but also with other issues. The US envoy said Washington is concerned about the ballistic missile proliferation and Iran's malign activities around the world. An Iranian lawmaker has offered a $3 million reward to anyone who killed US President Donald Trump. US Disarmament Ambassador Robert Wood dismissed the reward as ridiculous and indicative of Iran's dangerous plans. Iran's local media said the lawmaker Ahmad Hamza said Iran could avoid threats if it had nuclear arms. Tensions have escalated since President Trump pulled Washington out of Tehran's nuclear agreement with world powers in 2018. The United States has imposed further sanctions on Iran ever since. The standoff erupted into a tit-for-tat military strikes this month as well. Iran's Civil Aviation Authority has confirmed 2 missiles were fired at a Ukrainian airliner shot down earlier this month. The Ukraine International Airlines plane was destroyed shortly after takeoff in Tehran, killing all 176 people on board. In a statement, the Aviation Authority said investigators discovered 2 Thor M1 missiles were fired at the aircraft. The Thor M1 is a short-range surface-to-air missile developed in the former Soviet Union and designed to target aircrafts or cruise missiles. Responding to U.S. accusations that Iran is violating UN standards, Russia says the statements are no more than myth-making and fact-twisting. The U.S. Special Representative for Iran, Brian Hook, had said UN standards prohibit Iran from nuclear enrichment. In a statement, the Russian Foreign Ministry said Hook's comments accused the UN Security Council of passing resolutions counter to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. The ministry said the treaty grants all signatory nations an equal right to peaceful use of nuclear energy. It said Russia rejects the attempts to present the U.S. national approach and requirements as an international standard. In Syria, Russian airstrikes killed at least 18 people, including 7 children, in northern Syria. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said the strikes targeted residential areas in Idlib and Aleppo. Russia-backed Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, whose forces have been fighting rebels in Idlib since 2015. Last week, Russia and Turkey brokered a ceasefire deal to end the fighting in Idlib, but it could not take hold. An Iraqi protester has been killed while 8 others were injured in Baghdad as the 3-month-old protest movement gains new momentum. Protesters shut down roads by torching tires to pressurize authorities into implementing long-awaited reforms. The demonstrator died after being hit by a tear gas canister on one of the main highways in East Baghdad. Protesters clashed with the security forces, who fired live rounds and tear gas to break up the crowd. On Monday, 3 demonstrators were killed in the capital. Human rights groups have accused Iraqi security forces of improperly firing the canisters directly into the crowds at point-blank range. Earlier, 3 rockets have hit Baghdad's green zone, home to government buildings and foreign missions. North Korea says it will seek a new path as a year-end deadline for denuclearization talks with the U.S. has ended. At a conference on the disarmament in Geneva, North Korea's envoy Yoo Jong-chol called the U.S. sanctions on the country inhumane and brutal. He said if the U.S. doesn't change its behavior, there will never be denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. Yoo said the country took initiative by halting nuclear tests, test firing of intercontinental ballistic missiles, and dismantling of the nuclear testing ground. The envoy said the U.S. behavior threw a wet blanket over their efforts for global disarmament and non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. He went on to say that the U.S. threatened North Korea by conducting dozens of military exercises with South Korea. South Korea says it will send troops to the Strait of Hormuz with its anti-piracy unit now covering a larger area to help protect the waterway. Washington had asked Seoul and other allies to join a naval coalition to secure the strait amid tensions with Tehran. A statement from the Korean Defense Ministry said the force will not join a US-led coalition but will conduct its operations independently. It said the government has decided to temporarily expand the Cheonghae unit's sphere of activity. The ministry said the step has been taken to guarantee the safety of its people and freedom of navigation for shipping. More stories to follow right after a short break. Welcome back. In Hong Kong, toy stores are stocking up on figurines of pro-democracy protesters. Some factories have refused to manufacture the politically charged toys, but they can still be seen in retail shelves across the island city. More in this report.
The ongoing pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong are the biggest challenge to Beijing's rule in the city since 1997. The significance of these demonstrations is reflected in the city's toy stores, many of which have dioramas recreating clashes between protesters and police on display in their windows.
When we do it, we have to pay attention to details in the movement, including the origins of the yellow helmets, the gas masks and goggles.
Charlie, a pro-democracy toy maker, says he wants to make his toys as detailed as possible so people can empathize with the protesters. His figurines have scrapes on their legs from street skirmishes, and all of them have removable gas masks. Some even have a cling film draped on their arms, a method used by protesters to shield themselves from tear gas.
I've been inspired by Toy Story since I was small. I believe each toy has its own soul. So when I make figures, I try to make them breathe life.
Parts of these toys come from Charlie's own military toy collection, or he makes them himself using a 3D printer. This is because most manufacturers have refused to make politically sensitive toys, but this hasn't affected their popularity.
The manufacturers would usually say yes at the beginning, but when they actually have to make the parts, they will ask what you're making them for. They would impose self-censorship. Some factories don't want to be involved in politics.
The protest movement has died down in ferocity over the last month, but signs of political unrest, such as an anti-Beijing graffiti, are still all over the city. The popularity of these toys itself shows that the protest movement in Hong Kong is far from over.
In Asia, panic is spreading over the new strain of coronavirus originating in Wuhan, China. 4 people in China have already succumbed to the outbreak. Now, other countries are trying to keep the virus out. What in this report?
The Wuhan virus causes a type of pneumonia and belongs to the same family of coronavirus as SARS. This poses a significant threat to people everywhere. SARS also originated in China in 2002 and spread to 26 countries, infecting 8,000 people before it was brought under control. 200 cases of the Wuhan virus have already been confirmed, including 4 outside China. The tension is palpable in airports across Asia.
So far, there has been no cases, but in the event that there is, we would hold the patient, test them with a thermometer, and bring them to our clinic. But so far, there is no case yet.
South Korea has also launched a widespread screening of flights coming in from Wuhan.
Disinfection is strengthened upon the arrival of airplanes from Wuhan. We are fully committed to ensuring the safety of passengers by following up on foreign routes.
Similar precautions are also being taken in Japan and Hong Kong, but containing the outbreak won't be easy. It's peak travel season in China because of the Lunar New Year, and there's already heavy air traffic coming in and out of the country because of its role in the global economy. As such, another SARS-like outbreak could be around the corner.
In Chad, the French defense minister has met with her Chadian counterpart in the capital city of N'Djamena to discuss the formation of a new Sahel military coalition. French defense minister Florence Parly is on a 2-day visit to the Sahel region. Chad's defense minister Mohamed Abali Salah said they talked on the technicalities of the Chadian troops to operate outside their border. After the meeting, Parly said Chad's president Idriss Déby is committed to sending a battalion to the 3 border regions.
Indeed, this international coalition is a turning point because it will focus its efforts on the most critical area at the moment in the fight against terrorism, which is the 3 border region, with the new joint command that will bring together Operation Barkhane's command, G5 Sahel's command, and the leadership of the Sahelian armies.
During last week's PAO summit, French President Emmanuel Macron and his G5 Sahel counterparts said they will form a military coalition under one command. Now moving on to Tunisia, where President Kais Saied has named Ilyas Fakhfakh as the country's new prime minister. He now has a month to form a coalition and win a confidence vote in the parliament by a simple majority. There will be another election with urgent economic decisions hanging over the country if he fails. Earlier this month, Parliament rejected ex-Prime Minister Habib Jamili's proposed government in a confidence vote. Jamili was nominated by the Ennahda party, which won last October's polls but not a parliamentary majority. Tunisia has been in a state of turmoil since dictator Zainul Abidin bin Ali's regime was overthrown in 2011. 10 people have died in Ethiopia after a wooden seating area collapsed during a major Orthodox Christian celebration. Health officials say over 100 people were injured by the accident in the historic city of Gondar. The casualties happened as spectators' stands suddenly gave way as a facilitates bath. 100 had been sitting on a tiered wooden structure for hours when it collapsed. Officials warned the death toll could rise because an unknown number of people were crushed. Millions of people gathered in Gondar for the Epiphany festivities known as Timkat. 9 people have been killed by a suicide bomber in the western Chad village of Kaya, Nigeria. The military says 2 others were wounded when a woman blew herself up. Officials said the Boko Haram militants group is behind the deadly attack. Chad is one of the countries struggling with Boko Haram attacks that have spilled over from Nigeria's decade-long violence. Many of the group's fighters are believed to have sought refuge in the Lake Chad region, launching attacks into Nigeria, Chad, Cameroon and Niger. 11 people have been killed in a fire in Russia's southwestern Siberian region. The emergency ministry says 10 of the victims were Uzbek nationals. The blaze gutted a 1-story wooden house in the village of Picholmisky in the Tomsk region, causing the roof to collapse. The ministry said the house was completely engulfed in flames when the firefighters arrived at the scene. 2 people escaped on their own and were given the medical assistance. Authorities say the fire is believed to have been started by an electrical short circuit. In Australia, poor air quality caused by smoke from bushfires has led to unsustainable working conditions. The mining giant BHP Group says its operations have been slowed by reduced visibility at energy coal plants in New South Wales.
The company produced 9% less energy coal during the December quarter than in the same period during 2018. It said the wildfires could hold back the production of coal throughout the second half of the financial year. The warning from the world's biggest miner highlights the economic damage due to Canberra by the wildfires. Australia's tourism and insurance industries are expecting losses of $687 million each. For their part, officials say the hazardous fire conditions will return within days. The fires have killed 29 people, hundreds of millions of animals, and destroyed over 2,500 homes since September.
It's time for a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Poland has emerged as Europe's largest bank for stem cells sent from across the continent. It's a $1 billion global industry that can help to treat blood-related illnesses. But experts warn parents of raising too much hope, as many of them are saving blood of their newborns as a health insurance policy for their kids. More in this report.
Submerged in liquid nitrogen vapor at minus 175 degrees. Hundreds of thousands of stem cells from all over Europe bid their time in large steel barrels on the outskirts of Warsaw and Poland. The stored blood is drawn from the umbilical cord of a newborn baby. The 440,000 samples at Polish stem cell bank can be used to cure blood-related illnesses, genetic conditions, and immune system deficits.
If a patient needs a transplant and his or her own blood is stored here, it is immediately ready for use. It is not necessary to search for a suitable donor. Blood can safely be stored for 20 years.
The firm was founded in 2002 and is growing rapidly with millions of funds from outside investors. Various research is being done on treating nervous disorders using stem cells.
In the past, stem cells were only used to treat oncohematological diseases. Now they're also used for neurological and psychiatric diseases.
But critics warn against unrealistic expectations. They describe the promoters as sellers of hope that are impossible to realize in the near future.
In Sri Lanka, thousands of people gathered in Colombo to set a world record for the largest gathering of twins. Because of the huge turnout, the organizers could not meet the Guinness World Records guidelines. What about the twin gathering in this report?
Thousands of twin pairs waited in a long registration queue, snaking around the arena as their birth certificates were checked, while many posted for photographs. The event managers hoped to break Taiwan's world record set in 1999 with 3,961 pair of twins. The organizers set a target of 5,000 pairs. But to their surprise, a bigger than expected crowd flocked in, leading to no group photo officially required to break the record.
While the counting is still going on, we have counted 12,492. The counting is still going on. We will submit the final count and the documentation back to the Guinness World Record Committee.
Sri Lankan Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa was also there. Many twins had travelled for hours to take part.
We think bringing twins from around the country and having an event like this is a good thing. This is a totally different experience, really. When we see so many twins, it is a very pleasant experience.
It will take 2 weeks to find out if this attempt qualifies as a record or not. The organizers say next time they will be ready with a more systematic event.
In France, the luxury brand Christian Dior has staged an haute couture show on the first day of Paris Fashion Week. The event sees a pantheon of Greek goddesses draped in diaphanous creations walking the runway. More in this report.
Silk gowns with draped bodices, plated rope belts, and sunray-plated skirts fell to the floor at the Paris Fashion Week. The chic suits for which the luxury brand Dior is famous came double-breasted with invisible fastenings, giving the impression of the fabric wrapped around the body. Dior's creative director Maria Grazia Chiori made female empowerment the theme of the show.
I define myself activist, just a little bit activist, but because I think that I believe in what I do and I love to work with other women that has the same value.
Dior collaborated with veteran American feminist artist Judy Chicago to give the show its feminist perspective. Chicago designed the 21 giant banners with feminist slogans that punctuated the 75-meter catwalk.
What I started all by myself in the early 70s, starting out to try to change attitudes towards women, to bring a sense of the divinity and spirituality to the female experience through art, has had its fullest culmination in this collaboration.
Haute couture shows are a Paris specialty, with the world's richest women paying tens of thousands to be dressed by the world's top designers.
The Wall Street stocks have opened lower over worries about the fallout from a deadly virus outbreak in China. Markets are also losing ground over a gloomy growth outlook and concerns over the US-China trade relations. The indices of Dow Jones Industrial Average and Nasdaq Composite are trading fractionally lower. Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan Chase were among the worst performing stocks in the Dow Jones. The S&P 500 index traded lower, but the materials and energy sectors. China's economic growth slowed to its weakest in nearly 30 years amid a trade war with the US. Chinese officials said more stimulus steps are expected this year to help avert a sharper slowdown. China's Commissioner for the National Bureau of Statistics, Ning Jie, said Beijing needs to properly implement proactive fiscal policies. Data released by Beijing showed slow growth, but the world's second largest economy ended the year on a firmer note. Fourth quarter gross domestic product rose 6% from a year earlier, steadying at the same pace as the third quarter. although it is still the weakest in nearly 3 decades. US social media company Facebook will hire 1,000 people in London over the course of this year. The positions include a team to tackle harmful online content. In an interview, Facebook Vice President Nicola Mendelsohn said over half of the new jobs will be technology focused. She said the new recruitments will make the new UK's workforce to more than 4,000. Mendelsohn said the company is employing more people to build tools to remove harmful content across its Facebook, Messenger, Instagram and WhatsApp platforms.
That's part of the bigger plan that we have for investing and continuing to invest here in the UK, where by 2021 we'll actually start to be into our new offices in King's Cross, and we have desk space there for up to 6,000 desks.
And now the weather situation from around the world. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.